To the Wastewater Support Committee. I'd like to call it to order for April 3rd, 2018. All right. All right, any public comments to start with?
I do.
Yes.
Actually. I just wanted to say thank you to Sharon and Caleb for the enormous amount of wonderful work they did reorganizing the website. I've looked at it. I think it really looks great. We all contributed, but then Sharon and Caleb went miles and miles beyond our rudimentary suggestions. And we'll continue to add to it, but I really want to, definitely give a pat on the back and thanks to both Sharon and Caleb Ledoux of Channel 18, who spent, I guess I shouldn't say how many hours on it, but a substantial amount of time, and it really was a really great accomplishment for the short time we've been in.
I agree, and just want to remind everybody that Sharon's effort on that was not taxpayer funded, so.
Yeah.
So we got a break there. I will make one, if I could just make one comment though, on going to the website the last time I did, which is a couple days ago, I believe if you go on the Channel 18 tab, it still refers to us as the Wastewater Implementation Committee.
Oh, I didn't look at that.
And not the Support Committee, so you might just check that. Maybe they fixed it, I don't know, but. Oh, okay. Maybe it's been fixed, I don't know, but I saw it as WIC or whatever.
All right, I didn't touch that part.
I know, it is.
Yeah, all right.
But it is, I think it's a very now it's more useful than it was before.
We thought it was.
Yeah.
Yeah, both of us, so.
Good, and done in a timely manner. I mean, you guys got that done really fast. I mean,
Yeah, it's a lot of hours.
I like the idea, Peter, that when we add new material, we don't kind of have to reinvent the website. You've got enough breadth there that we can plug the new material in.
Yes, right into that.
Sure.
Yeah. And what it'll do, it'll come up in the news section under, when you hit the new button, as well as the categories that it's supposed to be in as well. So we still have some things that I need to get to add, but for the most part, what was there is there. The new ones we'll put in as we get them.
Well, as long as we're giving our favorites, what I like the best is while you're actually in a document, you can still see the links. So when you're in one, you go, well, wait a minute, that's not what I wanted. You can cross right over
Without going back.
forgetting what they were, as some of us do, and having to go all the way back out, so.
Yep.
Worked well. All right, thank you. Thanks to Caleb, too.
Yep.
Okay, the approval of minutes from the March 15th, and I think I also sent out the March 20th.
Right.
Madam Chair, I'd move we approve the minutes of March 15th.
I'll second it.
Moved and second?
Discussion?
Any discussion? Nope. Vote, or what do we do next?
All in favor?
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. All right, that was the 15th.
Madam Chair, I'd move we approve the minutes of March 20th.
I'll second it.
Any discussion? Moved and second, vote?
Aye.
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 I'm getting there. All right. The next is up is the town administrator. Do we want to let Kendall talk first? Is that all right with you? Okay. All right, this is Kendall Ayers. You can sit up there. And he's from the Barnstable County Septic Loan Program. And he's going to discuss this mostly for the people listening or that will be listening to maybe help clarify some of the questions that they have and make them feel a little bit more at ease. I will say that on that website, I did include a page that has links to your websites, frequently asked questions, the application, there was 4 links on there so that people can get to the website real easily and view this, but I still think it's nice to have you here to explain some of it. All right.
Actually, I'm here more to answer questions, but I can give you a brief overview of the loan program.
Okay.
Barnstable County began borrowing money from the state back in 2006, and since then we've loaned out around $41 million, primarily for the upgrade of conventional septic systems, but also innovative alternative systems and sewer connections. It's a 5% interest rate loan payable over a 20-year term. As you've seen on our website, I think you'll see that it's a pretty simple application process. The application itself is a single page. We need that filled out, of course. We need a mortgage statement if someone has a mortgage, a recent monthly statement. We also need income information. That's pretty much it, and we can approve somebody within 24 hours. I don't know, I mean, we try to make sure that people understand that it's really a simple process to go through. Now, as far as what we cover 100% of whatever is involved with conventional system upgrades, but in your case, sewer connections. That would include if the septic system today is in the backyard, they need to redo the plumbing, we can cover that cost. Restoration of the property, everything that's associated with a sewer connection, we'll cover.
Maybe I'll ask a few questions,
Sure,
Kendall.
by all means.
Is there any limit on the amount you can borrow, like 30 grand? No limit at all?
Some
Okay.
people want to apply some of their funds toward you don't have to borrow 100%,
Right.
but certainly there's no limitation. Whatever it
Okay.
costs, we'll cover that cost.
I saw your presentation last year, and there was only one area that I was a little fuzzy about. So let's use a figure of 10,000 for ease of math.
Sure.
So if I had a hookup that I wanted to borrow 10,000 for,
Yeah.
so you would be charging me $500 a year for 20 years. So would that $500 actually get put on my tax bill each year?
It has nothing to do with the town taxes. You'll be billed individually from Barnstable County. You'll be receiving a monthly statement from us.
Okay.
And on the
For some reason, I got the impression that it might go in the taxes, so that's not true.
Now, once upon a time, back in the late 1990s, the town of Harwich actually borrowed money from the state. Barnstable County administered that program on behalf of the town of Harwich and all the towns on Cape Cod. In that case, because you borrowed the money, you billed on your tax bill.
Right, right.
In 2006, Barnstable County had legislation approved that allowed us to borrow money. So we took the burden off of your shoulders,
Okay.
put it on our shoulders, and which we're very comfortable with, but
Okay, so in that scenario then, I would then owe you $500 a year plus a small interest?
It's billed, firstly, two things. It's, on the $10,000 loan, it's roughly $80 a month. This is unlike a mortgage. Your payments are not going to be level. The principal is level for the life of the loan. So in a $10,000 loan, it's roughly $41 per month for 20 years. The interest declines every time you make a payment because we recalculate the principal based on the smaller principal amount. You pay less interest.
Right, so we'd be paying you monthly or quarterly or?
Monthly at this point in time.
Monthly, okay,
We have billed quarterly in the past. We may go back to that, but right now it's monthly.
right. Do you have a provision for direct withdrawal of funds from bank accounts?
We do not. But what
Okay.
people do is they set up an account with their bank, and they can go online and set that up, and the bank sends us a check every month.
I see,
We have hundreds of people that do that.
right. So I'm just thinking ahead, Chris, if the amount doesn't go on the tax bill, then that may alter whatever programs we might develop for exemptions or things like that. We'll see, if it's not on the tax bill. But at any rate, that really covers the whole program. About how many participants do you have?
Well, $40 million is around $11,000 average loan, but again, that's more for a conventional system, not a sewer hookup. We haven't done that many sewer hookups. We're doing some in Barstow and Falmouth, Chatham, Provincetown, a few in Provincetown, but right now we're building. But the interesting thing is we haven't borrowed since 2014. We have, well, the $30 million that we borrowed was loaned out in 2014. Since then, we've been using the principal that's been paid back to us. So there's probably 47, 48% of the loans are prematurely paid back to us, which is okay. We're just turning that money over again. We're at 5%, as I indicated before, but at some point in the future, we'll need to go back to the state to borrow. We'll be borrowing directly from the SRF. At that point, we're borrowing at a 2% rate, and we can only loan out at a 4% rate. So at some point in the future, when exactly, 3 years, 4 years?
I wouldn't want you to go back to the SRF till we get our approval.
The money will be there, that's the good news. But
The
I
money
mean,
will be there, that's
But it may be
encouraging.
4% in the future, not 5%.
Okay,
Thank you, Kendall.
Sure.
Yep, Ned.
Just quickly, Kendall, thank you for coming. According to your website, you spent money on about 3,000 projects?
30, yes, a little
So,
over that.
and you said that most of those, or almost all of those, are for upgrades, not hookups. Is that correct?
The majority are for upgrades, yes.
How do you see that change, that ratio changing over the next, say, 10 years?
Well, quite frankly, we expected a spike, especially with Falmouth, for example, the Little River area, 1,400 properties. We expected a spike, we never saw the spike. We've made maybe 40 loans there. Stewart's Creek and Barnstable, there were, what, 130 projects or thereabouts, where if we saw 10% of those going through our program, why? I don't know. I don't know if it's just that people they have the money, they have financing other than Barnstable County. I mean, we're not saying no to people in sewer hookups. I'll make a loan to them without a problem. But why? So we can accommodate a spike.
Mm-hmm.
If in 4 years we have hundreds of people just applying for sewer connections, that's fine. We can accommodate that without a problem.
So my takeaway from that is that people are planning ahead, perhaps, and don't need a loan like you are providing, or they're going to some other funding source, like a commercial bank.
How about a third scenario? I know that in Barnstable for sure that when the pipe shows up, the homeowners get a betterment from the town for the infrastructure. They're putting off hooking up to the sewer. They're using their existing septic system. In the case of the town of Barnstable, they're giving people 20 years. If you have a functioning septic system today and if it's less than 20 years old, you don't have to hook up to the sewer yet. You have to get it inspected periodically, you have to get it pumped out periodically, but at the 20-year mark, you have to hook up to it. So maybe people are just sitting back and waiting. I'm not exactly sure.
Okay, thank you.
But certainly your other scenarios are realistic.
All right. You're
Yes,
finished?
thank you.
Go ahead.
Oh, did you have more?
No,
Chris?
I'm all set.
One of the statements that's frequently made is that almost no one is turned down for one of these loans. And because we have a large population of retired people, and in many instances, retired people with a medical concern because of the statistics of aging, how do you handle that? Because mortgage and income for that population would certainly look quite different.
Understood. Again, the $80 a month we think is reasonable, relatively speaking, to other expenses, your utilities, internet costs, cell phone costs, whatever. We work with as many people as we can and try to help them out any way that we can. We try to be inclusive, not exclusive, for sure. The vast majority of people that apply do get approved for a loan. And if someone has a hardship, we're approachable. There's 2 full-time people in the office, 1 part-time people. We answer our phones. If there's an issue, pick up the phone, talk to us, or come in and talk to us. We'll do our best to work with whomever.
Thank you.
Yeah,
Peter?
you're welcome.
All set? You're all set?
I am. That
Okay.
was it.
Kendall, are these available for commercial properties as well as residential, just residential?
Just residential. Once
Okay.
upon a time, we had some money available for commercial, and
Okay.
the state didn't like that, and they said, we can't do that anymore. We tried.
Okay, and you said the turnaround time for an application is typically 24 hours or 48 hours, something like
Yes.
that.
If there's an emergency, we can get a betterment agreement out the door in a matter of hours.
When they apply for the loan, do they have to provide some evidence that, okay, I got estimates, and here's what it's gonna cost for the plumber, and here's what it is? They just borrow a lump sum?
They can apply first, we can pre-approve them, they get bids, they submit the bids, we prepare a betterment agreement for the signature. And from there, we can go forward. We don't know necessarily if they're starting off with engineering design, we don't know what the total cost is going to be, so we can set up a betterment agreement for X number of dollars and modify that without a problem.
But you actually give out the loan amount, even though you pre-approve for so much amount, but the actual cash you send them, basically, is based on what they actually have to pay to get the work done, right?
We don't pay the homeowner, we pay the contractor.
You pay the contractor?
Right.
Okay,
But again, if we set up a betterment agreement for $10,000, if
Right.
it comes in at $6,000, the homeowner only borrows $6,000.
right, no, I
If it
understand.
comes in at 12 or 15,000, we modify the agreement, and they can borrow the full $15,000.
Okay, and the homeowner does the work to get the estimates and whatnot, and
We
then,
can review contracts, but ultimately it's their decision as to who they want to go with,
okay, and once they decide, let's say it's $7,500 and it's XYZ company,
right?
then XYZ company gets paid once they do the work, I assume? When
They
the
can,
work's-
oftentimes they'll ask for a deposit to purchase
Yeah.
components or whatever, we'll pay them that. the final installment does not get released, or the final check does not get released until the job has been certified as completed properly.
Great, thank you. That's all I had.
All right, I just have one question, and I think we spoke about it on the phone, but I'd like you to reiterate it here. I had one person that did come to me and say they had heard that there were some people that were turned down, and we spoke about the possibility of that happening. Can you explain to the audience that might be listening, what are the conditions where somebody could be turned down?
Sure. Well, firstly, Barnstable County borrowed the money from the state, and we have to pay that money back. We can't default on that. And as it turns out, what we've seen over the years, and this is surprising to me, that we have a default rate. On our quarterly people, we don't do quarterly now, but their default rate is around 2.5%, which is acceptable. The monthlies are more 5%, even a little bit higher than that. We've had to hire an attorney to send off demand letters to try to get people to pay us. And again, thinking about the $80 per month versus some of your other expenses, we think that that is reasonable. Hopefully, we can't repossess a septic system. Maybe your car can get repossessed, but we haven't figured out a way to do that yet. But as far as we do title searches, we don't do credit checks. If someone has a mortgage, then there's a strong likelihood that the lender would be paying the taxes, so their taxes would be current, which is important to us. With a title search, if we show up that there was an execution against someone, they hadn't paid a creditor, this would be a court matter. There would be a judgment levied against the homeowner. That would be recorded at the registry of deed. We'd see that. We'd pick up the phone, ask the homeowner what's going on. In some cases, we've seen something that happened in their lives. We understand that. They're in a payment plan, paying it back. We'll make them a loan. Some people, disappointed to say that we'll call them and say, you have 2, 3 executions against them. They deny it. They deny they've ever had the execution. So we know there may be a problem with them. And again, we're trying to look for an assurance that we can get our money back so we can pay the state back. So we're trying to be inclusive, not exclusive, and we'll work with people. We've had people that have recently come from a Chapter 7 bankruptcy. We'll make them a loan. They have a discharge in hand. Something happened in their lives. They're square now. We'll make them a loan. We'll work with people that are in Chapter 13 bankruptcy. Those are people that have a plan with the bankruptcy court. It's a 3-year or 5-year plan. They need to get permission of the court to incur additional debt. We'll work with them on that to get the information to the bankruptcy court. But the bankruptcy court will always approve a septic system or a sewer connection. So again, we help out. We just don't slam the phone down saying, go away, go to the bank. We really try to, our objective is to help people out.
Kendall, if a property is sold and they still have an outstanding loan, I assume that closing that loan has to be paid off.
The loan gets paid off in full at the time of closing, yes. We've had a question too, regarding people that have existing loans. You know, what happens if they need to hook up the town sewer? Can they obtain a second loan? Simple answer is yes. They continue to pay on the existing loan. We'll make them a new loan, separate loan. It'll be billed separately for the second loan. It's just that easy.
Just a couple follow-ups.
Sure.
Sharon may have asked you, but can we put your frequently asked questions on our website?
Oh, of course.
Thank you.
Okay.
Yeah, absolutely.
All right.
So, when I come to you looking for a loan, do you care which contractor I have used or where I have come by this amount, whether it's, you know, a contractor sanctioned by this town or not?
Generally, no. We recommend 3 bids. We've seen over time that people can save money, significant money, by getting the 3 bids. Oftentimes, though, homeowners know a particular contractor. They want to go with that contractor. It's their choice. Rarely, we've had problems with contractors, and we'll tell a homeowner that you really should be looking for other contractors to get other bids. That's rare. Contractors want to be in our good graces. You know, their money's guaranteed. We can turn an invoice around from a contractor in a week.
I guess the rub would come if I went to, you know, a contractor from East Oshkosh and,
Sure.
you know, got a loan from you, then I would never be able to be certified in this town, so you would never make the final payment.
They have to be licensed in the town to do the work, so they have to be licensed with the health department.
Okay, so a regular license, not the additional license.
Right, they can be an out-of-town
that we have.
contractor, but
Right.
they have to be licensed in any town, including the town of Harwich, to do
Right.
the work here.
But in order to be certified in the sewer program, we'll need it to come from our licensed utility installer.
Right.
So we couldn't get certification and thereby you wouldn't be able to give the final payment to the,
We wouldn't be able to give, if they're not certified,
To
if
the
they
work.
can't work within the town, we wouldn't be able to give them the
right.
deposit either.
Well, they could work in the town, but not in this program. You know, there's two categories, but we understand. Last question. So does the amount of the loan become a lien on the title?
Technically, it's not a lien until it's in default, if the loan is in default.
Okay,
What we do is record a notice of betterment assessment, so it just alerts anyone who's looking at a lien, no, excuse me, not a lien, a loan is taken out for X number of dollars for a sewer connection or whatever it was.
right. So kind of like our regular real estate taxes. They can be, if they become in default, they can become a
Right,
lien.
Right,
Okay.
and people
Thank
can refinance, you're welcome. People can refinance without a problem, it doesn't affect us. Some lenders do not want to have we're in first place because we're a betterment. Some lenders don't want us to be in first place, although even there may have been a mortgage in place, we record our betterment, we jump in the first place. They don't know that, it doesn't make a difference, but some lenders will want the loans paid off before people can refinance. Some don't, we don't care.
I guess I get a little confused when you say it's a betterment on our taxes, but it's not on our tax bill.
Well, it is a tax, but it's not in your tax bill.
Right.
So we have the same powers as your tax collector here. We can foreclose on people. If someone's late at a 5%, they go by law to 14%, similar to a property tax bill would be a 14%.
Right. But when we see our tax bill, we're not going to see
Will not
county
see-
loan.
No,
Yeah,
no,
okay.
nothing to do with that.
Live and learn.
No. I mean, there was discussion once upon a time for Barstow County to make the loans, even using our money, and then transfer this information to a town collector, and they would bill, and that would be a nightmare. So we bill individually ourselves.
Thank you.
I have a couple more, and
Sure.
one of them comes from from people who are considering this. Someone who wanted to do their own installation, they would not be able to get a loan for anything that they,
We can pay for the components, but not for the labor. We've had several contractors that have a failed septic system want to go through this program, and we've made them a loan, but again, we can just pay for the components, but not labor.
not labor. And we have some people who might have a slight gray area because we're looking at these grinder pumps. And some of those, I'm assuming that ongoing maintenance would not be under the loan then, because it's not really an installation and it's not equipment per se. But some of these pumps have to have, in order to maintain your relationship with the seller, the vendor of the pump, require a certain amount of upkeep over time. So that's going to be a separate line item outside of your loan, or,
Initially, we can cover that cost.
okay.
Even going forward, if a pump, we've had this happen where pumps have failed, which renders the system inoperable, hence failed. So we can just cover that cost going forward. Even though they've had one loan, we can make another loan to, if it's $1,000, whatever the cost might be for a pump or whatever to get them back online, we can cover that cost.
Peter,
Again, we
did you-
try to be as flexible as possible to accommodate people.
Good.
I'm done, thank you.
Once someone submits their application, you approve the loan.
Yeah.
How long is that approval good for, typically?
Well, we expect that they're moving forward in a reasonable timeframe. If, for example, we need tax information, we need a mortgage statement. So if someone wants to wait 6 years or a month, we can keep the application. They need to submit additional information to get them up to date. We'll do a new title search to see if anything's happened, anything has changed with the deed or whatever.
In our case, the earliest we'd start connections is 3 years from now, basically.
Don't start applying now.
That's what I'm trying to
Yeah,
get to,
yeah.
so people don't,
Yeah,
suddenly get
right.
60 people from Harwich saying, can I
Right.
be approved?
There'll be a file over there covered with dust. and-
Right, but is it reasonable that, say, within 6 months of when they can start installation, something like that, 3 months, whatever?
Right, the sooner, the later they can wait, the longer they can wait, the better. We're not going to run out of money, so it's not that type of thing. If they have to apply now, and then they'll have their foot in the door if the money runs low. We're not going to run out of money.
And if I heard correctly before, the interest rate, by the time we get around to this, may actually be lower than it is
Might be
now.
4%.
Right.
And we've had conversation with the state to make sure that we can borrow from the SRF. And we've been assured recently in the past, that money will be available for us. I foresee, I'm not gonna be around for forever, but this program should be here. It's, again, $40 million since 2006 is, there's a need for it. We also hear too that this is the best kept secret, which we don't. So on your website, it's wonderful.
Okay,
Thank you for
great.
putting it there. It's-
Question?
Yeah, I'm going to be around forever, so you can put that down. I'm interested in the tax implications. Is there any, is this like home equity? I can write this,
We get that question all the time. I'm not a tax expert, so I don't want to advise you. What I suggest is a tax credit out there also, Schedule SC, Mass State Credit. So I'd say look into that, but again, whether or not you can deduct this or not, I'm not really sure. At this time of year, we get many, many phone calls from people, homeowners saying, how much taxes did I pay, or how much interest did I pay last year? So I'm assuming they are deducting that, but it's not my call.
Could you repeat the schedule?
Schedule SC is in
SC.
septic credit. That's a Mass State credit. Primary residences only for that. And by the way, this residential covers residential, but anything residential, primary, secondary, investment, condominium, whatever.
Any more questions from?
You know, Peter had asked the question, in terms of the transfer of the betterment, that because it's a betterment, generally it's linked to the property. So if you had somebody that hooked up and had the system and wanted to transfer that, are they eligible to do that, or do they have to pay it off at transfer?
There can be an assumption agreement prepared. We've done that occasionally, not that frequently, but it's possible, yes.
Okay.
We've had some properties that, short sales, and the buyer of the property doesn't have enough money to pay for certain things, whatever, so we can prepare an assumption agreement for that.
I just want to make sure people realize that they have that option available to them, that it doesn't have to be necessarily paid off.
Right.
And then just out of curiosity, because it's chapter 83, it's the sewer statute that you
Okay.
guys probably issue this through, and you do a betterment,
Mhm.
and you know, in reading some of the material, which is kind of dangerous because I read some of the
Yeah,
material,
sure.
that under our tax law, we have some ability to do deferrals. I mean, if somebody really, you know, an elderly person had a significant
Yes.
health issue and is unable, I mean, are there opportunities for them to do deferrals until such time as the house transfers, or?
We have done deferrals in the past.
Okay.
We don't do many. We've had some problems with that. We set it up initially where the deferral will be revisited every 5 years, so it doesn't go to a full 20-year term. So they would have to fill out and sign another betterment agreement in 5 years. But we've had cases where the homeowner has died, a single homeowner. The children are living in the house, they don't want any part of the loan. It's a little bit difficult chasing them down, but is there a possibility for something like that? Absolutely.
Okay. And then the last question I had is, we're doing a public information on April 19th at 7 o'clock. Would you be available, or someone from your agency, to be able to come out if people do have individual questions that they could ask?
Sure. What I've stated, I say to Sharon when she called me on the phone trying to get out of this, was that we try to make this as simple as possible and as all-encompassing as possible. You know, 5% of this point, everything residential. We cover everything associated, whatever the project is. That's the message I want to get out to people. If there's a need to come to that meeting, certainly, but, I mean, for someone to speak on my behalf and say, look, you heard Kendall say this,
Okay.
we really try to make it as simple as possible.
Yeah, I don't mind in terms of the presentation. I'll do kind of the finance piece, but just say if people have questions, if
Proper
you're a
questions.
resource available to
Sure,
them at
sure.
that meeting,
Sure,
that'd be great.
sure.
Okay, I thought those were a few points that we want to make sure that we
Yeah.
reiterate with folks.
And I just want to reiterate that on our website, it's listed as Barnstable County Septic Loan Program links, for anybody that's listening. That's where they can link up to their website.
Sure.
Anyone else? All right,
Could you get me an email on that
Yes.
meeting, please?
all right, thank you very
Thank
much.
you,
I think it was
Kendall.
very
I
helpful.
appreciate it.
Yes.
Yes, very much.
All right,
Do you want me to stay, or you want?
yeah, you can stay.
Sharon? Yes. Could I request that we move the calendar out of order and be done with it before we get into,
Do you want to let him do the update first? Or, all right, let's do the calendar real quick. Do you mind? It
Really
shouldn't take us
important.
long,
We have so
only
many-
because,
Yeah, I have another commitment at 10. I mean, I'd like to be out of here by 9:30, to be
Oh.
honest. I got
all right,
activities.
we can do this in a couple of minutes?
Yeah, I hope
think
so.
Okay.
I hope so. Chris, you might be interested, some of it may involve you, there's calendars on the corner printed. And there's also an extra one there for anybody who wants it. So I prepared this only because we have so many meetings in the next month or so, and so many of us are out of town. I wanted to make a best effort to cover some of them. But also because we've talked about going down after this period of time to one morning meeting and one evening meeting per month rather than two. Thursday evening meetings are a problem for some people. I'm not suggesting we have a conversation about changing that right now. I'm suggesting we look at the calendar from now till June, because I have bankers who are interested in presenting. So Chris Harlow and I need a date to give them. They've been hanging on that. And then maybe in June, we can, if you guys email me all of your evening schedules and I look at the town calendar, then maybe we can have a discussion going forward about what would be the best schedule for us between needing the camera, needing the right people, you know, and everything else. So with that said, so I'm going to go through this quickly because I've gotten a little more information since I handed these out. Ann Howe is going to cover the April 7th Democrats meeting. You said something about the chamber, Sharon.
Yes, she's not, it's the fact that we're having the April 19th meeting
Okay.
with CDM Smith, she is
That's
not
fine.
going to cover
All right,
wastewater.
so that's gone.
That's
Chris,
gone.
so don't go.
Just on, I have two commitments. So on Friday, the 13th at 9 o'clock is the men's breakfast over at the community center. And I have something else that got scheduled that same day. And, you know, that's about 80 to 100, in this case, men's breakfast, so mostly men.
I mean, what men is it?
It's just elderly men that show up for
Oh,
breakfast. It's
okay,
a program that's run by our Council on Aging.
Okay.
And actually, Julian Sear is going to be the main speaker, but that is their last meeting before town meeting.
Okay,
So I was going to go and
Right,
try to
okay.
drop off a flyer and
going quick.
do a little plug,
Yeah.
but I'm not available that Friday morning. I have, like
We're
I said,
trying to
another
keep this under
obligation.
5 minutes, thanks.
Yeah,
Chris.
all right.
Yeah.
All right.
So I'm out of town, can you do that, Chris Harlow?
Yes.
Done. So if you can interface and find out which men are there, so you can prepare the appropriate thing. Okay, so next is, on the 17th, Peter Hughes informed us that he is kindly doing a presentation for 50 realtors at 9 o'clock in the morning, okay?
At the community center.
At the community center, okay. Most of us will still be out of town during that
All right.
time, so, but we'll be thinking of you.
Thank you.
Okay, so on the 19th, here comes the big one. So the only person in town is Peter, and he can't get there till 8, or
Right.
he can get there at 8. Let me
Right.
put it in a positive tone. I may be back, but it's unlikely, and nobody else is here.
Okay.
So.
I'll have a slide presentation, so maybe I'll get that to you and you can get it coordinated. I'm assuming there's gonna be a coordinated slide
Yeah, that's fine.
presentation, so.
So what's the agenda for the 19th?
The agenda for the 19th, I didn't bring it up with me, but basically, I believe we're doing 4 components. So CDM Smith will kind of do an overview, an update of, they'll have the map showing the location, they'll have the locations of where the pipes are gonna be, so they'll be able to answer people's questions about that, you know, how deep it is and so on. So we're gonna do a update by them. And then the second component, we have Dan Pelletier is going to go in and do a short segment on, thank you. Yeah, so the project overview and schedule will be Dave Young, the status of the sewer system design and cost estimate, Mike Judici. Discussion of house connections will be Dan Pelletier. So Dan will do,
Is he using these?
he was gonna use that. Yeah, that's the reason why he requested those, just to kind of walk people through. He brought up a feature that we do need to pay attention to, is we've shown these, we've shown people how they connect up. There is also a separate section of law that you have to have 10-foot separation from a water line to a sewer line. So
Okay,
he's the
well,
water line guy, so
Yeah.
he was gonna invite people to meet with him.
Okay,
And then we're gonna have Megan do the septic system decommissioning and the connection piece for the sewer, how that inspection will be done. And then I was gonna do the financing option. I was probably gonna do two pieces to the financing option. One piece was gonna be kind of the big picture of what it means for the $400, for the average, it's about $150 for this phase of it. So get in a little bit into that. And then I was gonna lay out the options that you heard from Kendall today, and that the mortgage companies or bankers have the other options. I think that tends to be some of the questions we've been getting, more on the focus of the 5,000 to 7,000 for the connection than necessarily the financing. So I may show a few graphs of what we have, that we do have as part of the overall comprehensive plan for financing the town, and just remind people it's $400, or in here, 41 cents a day, and then get into the options for the individual hookups. I think that's gonna be more of the focal point, so I wouldn't mind at least giving people an option to ask questions in regards to that.
All right.
And then just questions and answers.
and so where does Peter fit in? Because you asked us.
At the
You know
end.
what, well, we've worked together for a
Okay.
lot, so I think whatever Peter sends me, I will incorporate that into the presentation. I'll just incorporate it into my presentation, most likely.
Oh. So no Peter? I'm just trying to understand.
Yeah, I don't, just with traffic and everything else, I mean, I hate to guarantee that he's gonna be there at 8 o'clock. So what I will do is, I'll be prepared, and if he shows up at 7:30 and it's gonna be on for 7:30.
Only coming from the fire station, by the way, so.
Oh, okay. I didn't know if you were traveling.
I can get a
coming from
police
Logan.
escort maybe from there, but I will make it by 8, but that's fine. You integrate it, and if, you know, if it's appropriate, I'll stand up and do it.
If it's late enough and Peter shows up, I mean,
Yeah.
you know, I don't need to speak. I mean, I just do what needs to be done. That's what I do. So if Peter shows up, he can do it. If not, then I'll prepare to do it.
I know one question that may come up from some diligent soul who went to the CDM
You know,
Smith.
wait, let's get the schedule done
Right,
first,
yeah.
because we also
Sorry.
need to get through
I
the,
thought that was-
yeah, yeah.
All right.
All right, let's
Okay,
get
so
the
that's
schedule done.
that's our agenda for the 19th. So unfortunately, a few hundred people were told the meeting starts at 6:30, not 7. So Chris, is somebody from the town gonna, I don't know, be there to greet the people who show up at 6:20?
Yes.
Um,
We booked the room from 6 to 10, so I'm planning on being there at 6.
Okay, yeah.
So we'll have a presence there.
Calm them down. And of course, and this is our last chance to talk about this. And of course, we did talk about signage, and you said you were gonna have electric signs put at East Wind, the fire station, and the transfer station. I further asked if signs could be made up, paper signs at small expense, to be put in the area of the 600 homes.
I also gave that copy of that to.
I didn't hear an answer to that.
Oh,
Yeah.
all right.
Well, we could definitely do the electronic signs. We could look at the signs that can go up. I don't think we've historically done that
Right.
in the neighborhood, but maybe we can reach out. Is it Barbara? One of the
Barbara might
ladies
be.
from
We're
the
trying to
neighborhood?
make, a really nice effort for these people. I mean, even if it was a blow-up of the CDM sign on it's Staples on a sticker in the ground. Well, let me, in January, there was a lot of talk that people didn't know about that meeting. So we want to cure that ill, in
Yeah, if you have, is there anyone else besides Barbara that kind of represents a neighborhood?
You know what,
that we-
I have the electronic copy of that from Dave Young, and I did give it to Cindy Williams. She's gonna put it on Facebook, but I can also send it to Barbara and to Joanne Clancy. And they can possibly
Okay.
get that out. All right,
I mean, we could put things on telephone poles. That's not the nicest way to do things.
Especially if it rains.
The email distribution works well, if you get going.
Okay, all right. So-
yeah. Yes, they
Fine.
do.
As
And
long-
they are actually combining, so.
Yeah, as long as we have
Okay.
a plan, so we'll do the electronic and the email ones.
Plus, these folks will have already gotten a hard copied mailing, right?
Of what?
Most of them didn't say any date.
Yeah.
Didn't say a date?
Some did and some
It
didn't.
didn't mention the meeting.
Oh, I thought you said there was a 6:30.
There was a 6:30 on one half, the other half said nothing.
Nothing.
Oh,
Yeah,
Yeah,
yeah. So some of the letters that went out did not have.
right. It didn't mention the meeting,
Okay, all right.
you know.
All right.
so.
All right,
All
so
right.
let's get the dates.
Okay, so that ends the April 19th. So, next two issues are voter information, and I know from the calendar downstairs, unless it's changed, they were scheduled for April 24th and May 1st. April 24th being 9 to 11, May 1st being 6 o'clock on. I didn't know where wastewater fell on those due dates and who might be covering it.
Well, I'm planning on attending two of the voter information. The two that I'm aware of that they're doing, one is the financial state of the town, so I do that piece.
What's your date for that? That's all
I
right.
think the 24th is the right date. And then the other one, they have, and they started doing this, I'll have to look up the date, but they have one where they do significant articles.
Right.
So I would speak to the significant articles. Again, if somebody wants to join me,
No, I'm just
I don't
making sure
mind.
we have coverage.
Yeah, so I'm planning on attending those two on the voter information.
Okay.
The other one that I'm doing is the request for I think they call it the warrant meeting through the chamber. That is an evening one, so I'm planning on attending those three. I have those three on my calendar.
Okay, great. Because so many of us are out of town, we just have to, okay, so town meeting on May 7th. And since it's Article 14, it will obviously come up on Monday night. What presentations are planned for town meeting?
I think on town meeting, really the handouts, and then, I don't know, we hadn't really gone too far in terms of, the selectmen usually assign different selectmen to the articles.
Right.
They just finished voting them last night, so they'll probably do the assignment for who's gonna do the presentation.
Okay,
But I mean, I would imagine that Larry's the most familiar with it, so Larry would do the presentation, or if he wanted to do it in combination with somebody from the committee. In terms of structurally, we will have the machine, the computer ready to go, so if someone has a PowerPoint they want to present, we'll have that technology available. If people want to do a scaled-down version of the April 19th meeting, that certainly would be an option. I think for town meetings purposes, at least the town meetings that I've been to, shorter the better.
well,
So,
Instead of going into the detail of what all is going to be
Yeah.
done, but I'm just saying, we need him here when we go over this handout. So he's
right,
leaving.
right, well, I'm done anyway,
Okay.
okay. Yeah.
But we didn't bring
so-
up that you wanted to bring up the 30th.
Okay, so Larry and Peter are covered. So I'm going to go ahead with the schedule, and I'm going to plan bank presentations with Chris Harlow tentatively for Thursday, June 21st. That way I can let them, talk to them before I go out of town, if that's okay with everybody.
So then are you going to, or is the committee, since I won't be here, going to plan anything for any Tuesday in May at all?
Any Tuesday, unfortunately, the May 1st one was moved to April 30th, so no.
All right, so it's going to be the April 30th is going to
Be
be in
the
place
only
of the
meeting.
first one in June.
And there
or-
just didn't seem to be any point to have one on Election Day with so
Yeah.
much else going on,
Yeah.
so you're right.
All right.
So that's it. If
You'd also
everybody,
you'd also probably be accused at that point of trying to influence the election results, so.
it'll be it'll be the day before April 30th anyway, so if there's any fallout from the CDM meeting, then that's the same day as the Board of Selectmen meeting. We'll see if people come to us or go to them. Thank you, folks. So we
Okay.
can go ahead and plan completion of the last few projects we started. Thank you very much.
Okay. All right, to the brochure, I want to do that while you're still here. I had originally sent something to Sandy, but I should have copied Ann, and I didn't, so I don't have copies. Going over that brochure, I think the committee has, I'll let everybody have their own comments on that, and then I'll I'll say what I think we need to do. Go ahead. On that handout.
The phase two?
Yes.
Well, I made my comments to you, and,
But let's-
and I thought basically that the graphics needed to change to be more representative as to where we are today in phase two. You know, something like this.
Yeah. We have 3 of them that Dave sent out, 3 different
Yeah, just.
Diagrams.
Just for background, I mean, we were getting that for Dan Pelletier to do the presentation on the 19th to show the 3
I
different
know,
systems.
but it should be on that.
If you want to include, I don't know if we want to include all 3 or include one of those that is kind of representative of.
Well, the one on
what-
the front cover now just shows what we used a year ago.
Right,
Yeah.
Down to the ocean, that kind of thing, or estuary, whatever. This is more relevant since we're talking about hooking up houses now.
Yep.
I think that the one with the house and the Chatham Center, they've seen all of this. So I think to have these diagrams, even the 3 of them,
Yeah.
are going to be more useful to the people than it would be to do that.
Because that's what we're talking about for this
Yeah.
set of articles, I guess, right? So.
And the
And-
suggest,
And the same with showing Allen's Harbor, the algae bloom. I think we still
Yes.
had that in Allen's Harbor. It's kind of like, okay, for phase two, that doesn't mean anything to me. you
Yeah.
know.
yeah, well, that's gone from the second version anyway.
I haven't seen the second version.
There's
so
another
okay.
version.
Okay.
It's
so
not much different,
You're
but
keeping
it's,
things from me, so.
pardon me?
You're keeping things from me.
Yeah, now, you would have gotten, is that the
I haven't
original?
seen it.
Okay.
This is the second draft.
Oh,
I
is
have
that
the
the
first
sec-
draft, and I have the second draft.
Second draft, all right, that was the one I was hoping
Yeah,
to get printed.
I did have a little bit of conversation with Dave Young. He said he did get some material, so he did make some revisions.
They're
Yeah, and I saw those.
virtually the same. It's all the
Yeah.
same language, but one
Yeah.
sentence.
Yeah,
So-
okay. And then I think that simple timeline, which is probably something close to this, ought to be
Right.
in there somewhere. but- Just because it tells people, hey, here's the real point. When I get all done with this, we don't start to flow stuff to Chatham until June of 2021, so.
Mhm.
I'm going to jump on Peter's. See, it's kind of what I said in my comments, which were, kind of discarded, but, that I think the real star of the show is the 600 homes. That's what the $20 million is about. That's what the vote is about. So, again, I'm not going to go through every one of my comments, but I don't see anything to be gained by repeating brochures we've done before, the verbiage for brochures we've done before.
But you like the map that's on there that shows the
Map is
property.
better.
Yes,
The map-
that he added, that was
The
good.
map is better. I still would like a full-page one.
Haven't
I was
seen
gonna
it
say,
yet.
But-
could that map be a insert? Could he make a full-page map of that, or make it a full page, and just insert that into the 4-page brochure, and then use these diagrams, the 3 of them, and have those
Yeah,
pictures in
I
there?
think we could probably do the diagrams on the front page. We'll just lose
Yeah,
these
those
two.
ones.
I want to finish my thought. I would rather not do that. This is already getting costly anyway for the taxpayers, and with the short amount of time for it to be distributed. We wind up using a page of it as a map. We've continued anyway. I wouldn't be in favor of an insert. I'd rather see the map with the list of streets on the side. The list of streets to go with it.
I'm with you on that.
You know,
And,
I don't
my-
want this to get any more costly since it's a repeat.
Yeah, the one thing, just a product of doing any kind of, material, it needs to be, if you're gonna have 4 pages, it's 2 11 by 17 folded, so
Mm-hmm.
you gotta keep it to 4. It's either 4 or 6. We contracted for 4, so.
Mm-hmm.
And
The
that'll
other
be
thing is, we
people
don't get
who
this
need
done in
6.
a timely manner, it's useless. I mean,
Right.
we can't have 27 revisions out, we gotta get to
Yeah.
some point. so-
Yeah.
We did just get it Wednesday, at 6, but we're doing our best.
Can I also say, wherever you indicate the timeline, be very explicit. When you say construction here or any place, can you indicate where it's under the streets versus the homeowners? Because people are getting quite confused about that. When they say construction, they think that means themselves. And,
Right.
so it's very important. And it distinguishes what the bid is for versus what the homeowners need to pay for. And it's really necessary to have that clear. They haven't, been following this in the same detail we have.
Now, are we expected to have the final list of homes by then?
By the 19th.
By the 19th?
Yes.
All right. That should be made available somewhere. Not that it's, you know,
Well, I think the map will show the houses that are being done.
So
Yeah, but-
when is it available? I mean, when will this go? So the map isn't finished yet.
No, I see your point.
When will it go to the printer? How can it be both places?
I just need to, yeah, no, I'll double check with him. He may have, he did get a version that had the hard red area
Yes.
around it. So that may be all we need. The thing that
that
people,
when my impression from that was that was still a draft, and that there was a final coming.
yeah, that was my
And I did
impression.
ask him if it would be in time for Peter's presentation on the 17th, and he had said yes. So double check with him on that, because my impression is that that map should be finished. And if that's the case, instead of just a map, like he showed with the one where he had that list of streets, that they're listed, that the people can have a list of them, not just the map.
It's particularly, I'm sorry, it's particularly important because some people have asked me, they're on the line, and they said, well, which side of the, you know, you literally get to the edge of that red
Right.
line, and people are confused and can't define where they are.
I'm just trying to follow the timing. So we're talking about the final map being ready, let's say the 16th? No?
Well, let me get a better date. I think if the target is gonna be the 16th, so Peter has it, I like to have it so we can distribute it on the 19th.
Okay.
That's,
So
that was my
It would be nice
impression.
to have that material to start to have material to start to distribute.
But then what map goes in this and when does it go to the printer? To be given out on the 19th?
Right, I think just, you know, sitting here, I mean, if our target date is the 16th, then I need to say to Dave, we need to get it basically done by next week and ready to
Yeah.
go to the printer.
Yeah.
So then the map is really ready next week, not the 16th.
Yes.
Yeah, I think so.
I think that, yes.
I'm just trying to follow the timing, that's, you know, lots of, so you're saying the final map is gonna go in this brochure?
Yeah, I think it makes sense to have the final
Yes.
map.
That's what I always thought we were
Yeah,
doing,
yeah.
you know? So we can't really talk about rushing to the printer until really, the point right now is Dave Young and the final map.
That's a component to it.
That's the missing link.
You know, we sent out 800 letters. I've received 3 phone calls. I've returned 3 phone calls. The one phone call that I actually had interaction with the person, he was excited about being in it. He had some concern that the map has white areas and the map has pink areas, and he says, well, which one am I? Everything in the outlined area was gonna be part of the sewer program. So I did get that material to Dave that we need to have, if we're gonna show an area, we're showing an area, everything within that area. So the one call that I did connect with, you know, very supportive of the program and just wanted to know, am I in or am I out? To the point about which side of the street, am I in or am I out? So the map is gonna be critical.
Right.
I think if we drive people to the website where they're able to blow up the map and see those lines more specifically, because we're not gonna be able to get something big enough on here for people to be able to specifically see.
And a list of streets
Right,
always
yeah, well,
reinforces
I think
it.
the list of streets makes.
All right,
a lot of
let me ask a question here. Can you check sometime today or tomorrow whether Dave is going to have that map and the list of streets ready and when it will be ready? And then also, when it gets sent out, to please make sure Caleb is copied, because he knows exactly where it's going to go on the website, so that it's going to be available. But we need, instead of leaving here to, you know, and not knowing, we think it might be maybe this or that. Let's get a firm date from him, because my understanding from an email he sent me, when I asked him about Peters, he said, I thought it was going to be done by the end of the week.
To the
Okay.
end of
The week.
last week or this week. Today's Tuesday. right?
Yeah, today's Tuesday.
I know I was out late last night, but it's still.
I'm going to say, I thought it was going to be the end of this week. Now, I had so many emails going back and forth that I
I
kind of,
committed to the selectmen last night to try to get a draft to them for Monday
Yes,
night. So
yes.
I will try to accomplish that.
all right. But we need something firm from Dave when this map and these lists of streets is going to be ready. And so can you either email me that information and then I'll see that it gets out?
Yeah,
All
I
right.
think I'll call him today and go through the changes that we're looking for in this and do a final version and get that draft out.
all right,
And let's be clear too, when you talk about the streets,
yeah,
streets have two sides.
Right.
Ann is
yeah,
not on my side of the street. I'm going to be sewered. She is not.
yeah,
And she needs to know that,
yeah.
just as I need equally to know what I'm, I'm going to
So
be.
is that possible that, you can go down a street and only one side's gonna be sewered?
Oh, yeah, it's
All
very
right.
possible.
Then I think that needs to be made clear.
A half and half, might be sewering the top half of a street and,
Then I do think he needs to make that clear, because that's gonna be confusing to people, if it's on one side or the other.
okay, so,
Yeah.
There
good
were
point.
also people who were told they were going to be sewered, and now it's been changed. So
That's
that's
correct.
the other reason to have that list.
That's correct. Because there were people in Phase 8 that are now in Phase 2 because gravity works in that situation, so.
all right, so CDM's responsibility will be to come up with the final map and
Correct.
whatever configuration of streets is appropriate for this time to go in this brochure.
Yes.
So what about the rest of the brochure? We've just thrown out a bunch of ideas, but, so it sounds like this committee is, by consensus, is suggesting these 3 photos. Is this committee suggesting verbiage of this sort?
Yeah, that's what
Yes,
Peter
yes,
wanted, the
yes,
timeline.
yes.
That makes sense.
Yeah,
Okay.
this with the intros, so
Yep.
that it highlights the 600 homes.
Yep.
So that's basically page 1, page 2 is the map, page 3 is what, the list of articles?
I think you need to do the list of
Yes,
articles.
oh,
we do.
yes,
Oh,
yes,
we do.
yes.
That sentence still, it just, okay, so it's the sentence under Article 14. In FY18, the design dollars and funding of our intermunicipal agreement with Chatham was funded. I mean, some of these sentences are clunky, and I don't know if we have time to, and I remember the same conversation last year, and sadly, we always seem to get to the last lap, and it's like, we say, well, we'll let it go, we'll fix it better next year, and here we are again, so.
If I just interject
Sure.
something, I think because of the time of all this stuff and people's availability, we're giving Chris the comments, and I think we're doing some major restructuring of it. I think I heard him say that he's committed to get a draft to the Board of Selectmen next
Correct.
Monday. And then I think based on what they say, and maybe one person from this group having eyes with Chris on what it is, I think we're done. I mean,
Right.
it has to be at that
Right.
point. You can't wait much longer.
Yeah.
So
Right.
Yeah.
instead of
Right.
circulating a document to all of us, I don't think there's gonna be time for that.
Most of us aren't gonna be here, it's gonna be just you anyway, Peter.
Oh, thank you.
Yeah. That's the whole
The only
point.
thing I mentioned last night, and I will incorporate in, we had a slide over in Dennis, when we were meeting with Dennis, Harwich and Yarmouth, is that there's a slide that shows all the abatements that we have and the percentage. And, I think there is still a fair amount of people out there that think, well, I can just put in one of the home systems. And we have in the 12-page brochure a thing that shows a typical septic system is 5%, an advanced home septic system is between, I think, 20 and 40, and then the sewer system itself goes up to 95. And every number, the lowest number we have is 58. So the one thing I don't want, well, I shouldn't say don't want, but the one thing I'm concerned about, and the commissioner came out for that meeting to say, if you're in a nitrogen-sensitive area, and you don't do the sewer project, then you're gonna have to do the home system, which is gonna be double the expense is what we had in the report. And it's double your expense, and oh, by the way, we still have to put a sewer in to get there. So I think that people thinking that, well, I can just design out a system and be done, there is no system, and there's no abatement that's below that level. But I think it does get to, in particular, I think Larry made this point last night, we did Muddy Creek, and we're doing sewering in 600 homes at this first phase. We don't have to do everybody. We're trying to get to 65, and the combination of the alternative technologies like Muddy Creek and doing limited sewering gets us to that 65 number we need. And somehow that message, I think those graphics that already are there, probably make that case well enough for us. But I think this isn't just for 600 people. If we just target this for 600 people, we're gonna be in trouble, because we need everyone in the community to vote in favor of it. So I think that element has to get into there.
And I'll let you speak, just one, I just want to bring up one thing. When you look at those diagrams, make sure you get them from Dave, because he sent out a correction to one of them. And he did, I don't know who all he sent it to, but he sent out 3,
Mean
and
these
then,
things?
yeah, he sent out 3, and then he sent out one that I think was, from Dan, said wasn't right, and he redid them. He
Okay.
redid the 1. And I did send that to Caleb, so the 3 correct ones should be on our website. But I want you, for what goes in that brochure, please check with Dave that we have the 3 current ones when you do that.
Very briefly, this was on our agenda, the selectmen's meeting last night, the brochure, and we moved to bring it back to you folks, because you're obviously doing all the work. But I will emphasize what Peter said. Time is running out now,
Yeah.
so our charge last night was, as Chris said, to get the brochure draft for Monday's meeting. The rest of the selectmen, my charge is to bring back, what you guys are doing as well. But at this point, my intent on Monday, we'll have the draft from that Chris putting together. My intent on Monday is say, this is our draft, let's vote on it,
Yes,
so it goes out.
yeah, it goes
won't
out.
be completely done
yeah.
because we have the final map to put in, but time is short.
Mm-hmm.
I appreciate that, there's language I look at that I think I could write better, but now's not the time.
Yeah,
We need to get it out. The critical part to me is always the map in there,
Right.
and then so people know.
go ahead.
So could I suggest, if it's appropriate, that maybe, Chris, if you got a next version of this thing by Friday, maybe you just circulate it to Larry and myself. I represent the committee if you
Yes,
want. and
yes,
you,
yes.
And we can just get it cleaned up, so
Yes.
at least the selectmen can vote on something we think.
That'd
One
be-
Monday,
I-
and then it
I
goes,
I was going to suggest that.
Yes.
We look at it briefly, but.
Or it could be Monday morning or something, if you're waiting.
Well, we'll put it in the package for the selectmen, so it will be there electronically by at least Friday.
If you
Okay,
could-
so
if-
email me what you have, and then we can,
I would like, Chris, if possible, if we could look at just before it goes in the packet.
Yeah, as much time as I have in between that.
I understand.
Yeah, it's going to be real short,
Yeah.
but just a real brief look at it before
Maybe it
goes
wouldn't
in.
have the map, but it would have everything else.
But
Sure.
I'd like to do that, but my point is, at this point, it's going to have to move on.
Right.
yes, I agree.
On Larry's note, I've heard that committees make recommendations and, the boards will make policy. I'd like to suggest that the town consider looking for its, I've heard called educational materials, I think of it more as PR, but look to a different source. CDM, is a wonderful source for all of our engineering needs and everything else, but when we see a draft of something that's really a repeat of previous years, I think we've come to a new stage in the development of this project. And I quite frankly think, and as my personal recommendation, I don't know if the board agrees with me by consensus, but that this should be the last educational brochure produced by CDM. I feel CDM's role should become a contributor to future publications, and that we should have a different look going on. This is a big change if this vote passes. It's a big new step, a big change into communication with our neighborhoods, with our communities. 34 million will have been invested, and I think this is the time to make that change into a different PR approach, a different neighborhood approach, as Chris Harlow has spoken for many years. That's my opinion. I don't know if the committee feels that way, and again, ultimately, it would be the Board of Selectmen's judgment. But I do know that those services are often covered in the small contract with CDM that covers Dennis Howard Jarwith. I looked at last year's contract, it didn't even really mention this. And whatever it mentions, it's always just called educational materials. And as wonderful as they are at their engineering expertise, unfortunately, we always wind up at the last minute with the same language. And I think this should be the last time this happens.
Can I add to that as well, that the maps shouldn't be this difficult in the modern era, that having digital maps that can be produced literally with the click of a button and delivered to the town, delivered to anyone administering them, and made available for change very quickly would also be something that would be highly beneficial. And in many funding sources now require digital maps, and it should have been one byproduct, or at least a future source for us.
Yeah, just two comments. You know, CDM has been a great partner here, so, you know, they are an engineering company. I think this is a little bit out of their forte. But before we, you know, have them go packing in terms of PR, who else do we have? So until there's a viable option to go. And the maps, it's not the map that's difficult. It's the gravity, it's the sewer, how the system works, and who's plugged into it. So the maps aren't a big deal. What is a big deal, and quite honestly a very big deal, because these systems are going to last 100 years, is to make sure they get the gravity and the locations right. So the maps aren't a big deal. What they're working on are the gravity and those elements of where the pipes go. That's all.
But that would be something that could be handed off readily as an ongoing deliverable. That's a standard approach from any engineering firm currently to do that, and it makes it extremely easy. You can even do it in real time as to which streets have construction going on, so that someone can look and see when the construction is on their street. The sources of those maps are not expensive. They can be loaded, changed, made real time. They even do it for snow plowing. And they cost, the software platforms cost about $35 a month.
Okay, Peter, you had a comment, and then I have
I would just say great conversation for a post-town meeting.
Yeah.
We can kick this around all summer long, figure out what we want to do, how we can do it better. Obviously, it can be done better, but let's get through town meeting. I would just go with that.
I was going to
at
say, I
this
think
point in
that's
time.
something that we could bring it back.
The other thing is, I just want to point out, in defense of CDM Smith, is that the system needs to get designed. I mean, as far as I remember, the system design isn't finished until like next November or December, so they can put out bid packages. If we're all sitting there with a design done, going out for bids and coming to town meeting with actual bids in hand, which is the preferred way to do it, obviously, I think it would be much better at having the maps and all the details and everything else. We just don't have that at this point in
Yeah.
time. It's incomplete at best. And that's what they're being paid for, is to design a system.
And just, that's a great opportunity to make this point, because I had a discussion with Dave Young, and I said, why can't we just have bid documents and go right out to bid? Well, we're in an SRF process. I did rerun the numbers too, and to go out for 2%, it's about $20 million in interest. To go out at 4%, it's $40 million in interest. So it definitely is worthwhile to go out. The SRF process requires that you do a design feasibility, have your funding commitment locked up, which means the vote in May, before you can proceed to final design. So it's not our system. We're relying upon the state system, and that state system just calls for the feasibility and the design elements to be completed at this stage and the application. The good news is we're very high on the list because we're a joint proposal with Chatham. So we will get funded, provided town meeting and the voters support this. So we're high on the funding list, and we're in line for that 2%. But we just need to make sure that we execute through this process.
The only thing that I want to add is, and I'm going to take off from what Noreen said, and you said yourself, CDM Smith is not a PR company, all right? Anytime something like this has come out, we don't get it to the last minute. Now, we had asked for a draft of this back, I think, in February. We only got it last week, and it really is not much different than the other two handouts that they had done last year. So, when you say they're not the PR person, but you think they should continue doing it, maybe this committee, after the vote in May, can make a recommendation to the board, because I don't think it works. It doesn't work with them doing these handouts. We don't get any information till the last minute. We have no input in it. And if you look at our charge for this committee, is to be outreach to the town. Granted, we need to get the information from CDM Smith, but it's not forthcoming. It's not forthcoming. We don't get it to the last minute. And I don't think that it's not available.
See, that's where I respectfully
Well,
disagree.
no, wait, let me finish on that. Are you going to tell me that this brochure that came out, that we're going to hand out on April 19th, that they didn't have this finished until the last minute? Now, we knew that they were waiting for the articles. That wasn't what we wanted to look at. We wanted to look at what the draft of what was going to be presented, and we only got it last week. Now, they didn't have to do anything. It was the same thing. If you look on the draft that we got, the date on it is March, early March. Yet we didn't see it until just last week. So I think if our committee's charge is to be the outreach, something's going to have to change. There's going to have to be more dynamics flowing between CDM Smith and you and this committee, or this committee isn't going to be able to function. And I think that's where Noreen's coming from. I know that's my feeling. I don't know about the rest of the board, but this is, it's difficult. It's difficult. So.
Can I add just one thing? I agree, town meeting is what matters.
Yes.
And I'm happy to have a discussion with the board when that's behind us, one way or the other in June. My fear is, though, is that we repeat our mistakes. The contract with CDM usually goes July to July, so that could very easily be signed. So in other words, if we're saying wait till after town meeting, it's got to be early June. Otherwise, it'll be another year. That same traditional contract, public record will be signed, and CDM will then have the wherewithal to continue in the exact same role that they are now in terms of PR. I certainly want them to continue in terms of engineering. So it can't go on into a discussion like June, July, August. It has to be June.
All right, we can bring it back to the,
And I would just say, in my opinion, it would be appropriate to bring CDM Smith here and explain the design process and the schedule they're following and when things realistically, according to their project plan, which is much more in-depth than anything we've seen, as to when things might be available and what tools and methods they have to help deliver that,
That
if
would
you
be
will.
great.
And then see if we understand what that is and if it satisfies what we think we need
Right.
to deal with the public.
That'd be fabulous.
And by the way, one of those discussions I think should be, just because of that session you and I attended at the library on Saturday.
yes.
With the grinder pump guys and one of the sewer installers.
That was very good.
The whole issue of, how much consideration has there been in the whole topic of, whether it's a gravity system or anything else, and, how do the economics play in, and when's the analysis gonna show up that says, yes, gravity is the way to go for these reasons, and I think that's an even bigger discussion than the PR at this point in time, quite frankly, but just my opinion.
All right.
And my point that I was trying to make earlier is that CDM is primarily an engineering firm,
Exactly.
and it's not a marketing firm.
Right.
That was the point.
Yes, I agree.
In terms of timing and being critical in the maps, I couldn't disagree more. They didn't know until they went in, got the survey work, that they were able to take, southwest and northeast out until they had all the survey work in. And the thing we don't want to do is publish a map that shows people are going to be on grinder pumps if that's not the case. So you need to have the engineering first and completed first before we get to the diagrams and drawings that we're going to be able to tell people what we're doing. So that information has been very recent, that they've made these, design changes and showing what's in and what's out. So they are working very diligently behind the scenes. So I get concerned when I hear, the plan that was in March, like it was being withheld from us.
No, you misunderstood.
It's
No,
really
wait,
not.
You
It's
misunderstood.
Being
what-
driven by the engineering, though.
You misunderstood what I was saying. I realized that they weren't going to have that information till the very end, all right? We were asking for a draft, and it could have said, we're going to put the map here, we're going to do this or that.
Right.
What
Okay.
I'm saying is what he sent out with the same drawings that were out in the handouts from last year. What we got is that final draft, and on the bottom, it says March. On the one, right? It says March. What I'm saying is, it would have been nice if we would have had the draft of what he had planned on putting in there. Even though the information wouldn't have been final, to say, we're going to put the map here, we're going to include this, or we're going to do that, that we would have had the input to say, you know what, those pictures are old pictures. Let's come up with something different. That's what I was getting at, is that I wasn't saying that they were going to have the information final, and I realize that takes time. And to simply say, you know, this is a draft, we're going to put the final in there, it would have given us a chance to have some input. And that's what I'm saying is, we can't wait till we get everything that's final and then say, you know, here, take a look at this, have the committee give some input, and, you know, here we are, we're up against a timeline. That isn't my impression of what our charge was, based on what we wrote and what the board gave out to us as our charge. If we're the outreach, we need information. We can't stand up and not have anything for people when they ask us questions. And that's kind of where I feel that I don't feel adequate in doing that, because I don't have anything. So I think, again, you know, maybe the committee, I may not be here at the time, but I think in June, we ought to bring this back, have the committee discuss it, and make a recommendation to the board. That's what the charge says, to make those recommendations. And I think that's a great idea. I think it needs to be discussed further with the committee and the board, and maybe CDM Smith, as to what everybody's roles are going to be going forward, so we know what we're doing.
I think it's even an issue of timeliness with CDM Smith. You know, sometimes these requests have been made, and they simply are, with very minor changes, they're very slow to respond. And I'm not talking about the engineering outcome. I'm talking about, and one of the problems with that is it actually inhibits us, but it's also confusing to the town voters. There have been too many times when they said, we'll change it, and it's not that huge a deal, but the change comes and it's not quite right, or it's minimal, or it's just a very basic thing. And I mean, I'd almost say that, you know, I mean, hold up their payment, get it to us or else.
All right, okay, we'll bring this back. We'll bring it back.
Don't shut me down.
Well, we're not here necessarily to you know, beat anybody down.
I'm not beating somebody down, I'm talking about enforcing a contract, which is very different.
Okay, so we'll bring this back sometime in June.
That's how engineering works.
Okay. All right,
June agenda.
all right. So we did, we're good. We're good. All right, so we're down to, we finished the calendar.
Could I just add to that, what I'll do, based on what we said today, is I'll send out that calendar to all of you, based on whatever information I got. If there's any little errors, don't shoot me.
All right.
And I won't put on who's gonna be in town or not, because it just,
No.
it changes and it's personal and,
Yeah.
you know.
Yeah.
I'll be here.
All right. Just as far as that homeowner's letter that did go out last, maybe it went out early this week, but I know that people received it because I got some comments, so the letter did go out.
Can you tell us some of the comments?
Other than they received it, I just got, hey, we got the letter, great, thanks, I'm glad it's out.
Did you get yours, Larry?
I haven't gone, I just got back on that, not through the mail yet.
So, and then as far as the web progress, like I said, I did what I thought the committee had wanted, and now, at this point, if you need to tweak, it can be tweaked, but I thought it, you know, was kind of where we were expecting it to go. And I did say something to Caleb, he knows where the new things go when he gets them. And other than that, I don't have anything else.
Announcements?
Oh, yes, I mean, as far as the outreach.
I was one of the people who responded to this letter,
Okay.
because I got it in my mailbox.
Uh-huh.
And I'm not going to be sued for a while, but I was curious about who actually got this letter.
Can I see?
All right, let me,
You had interacted with me. Did you get your copy? Oh. Heinz Prof, Natural Resources Director. Did you get a copy of the IMA? Did you ever track it down?
No, I
okay.
did speak with Larry about it. I guess it's not finished, because somebody
Okay.
told me that it was there, so I think the IMA we're talking about Pleasant Bay Alliance.
Yeah, I looked for it and didn't.
Yes. So Larry's looking into that and the MOU that I saw that they were working on.
We shouldn't beat 'em up anymore now.
And at that point, when you get them, Larry, will you see that, because we have a place, it's not in there now, because we didn't have anything to put, but the letter K on the website is going to be for Pleasant Bay Alliance, and those documents will go in there. So, yeah, we got that.
Can I answer Chris's question?
Yes, go ahead.
Okay, so, he asked who got the letter, and, this is actually a list, and I have it electronically of who got the letter. I will say, I guess I'm disappointed today. I was disappointed in the list, because the list was not, a specific list of the originally thought to be sewered, plus the potentially might be sewered, the 628 as we had been talking about for many, many months. It was actually a list of the 500, all the homes within 500 feet of a certain parcel, kind of dead in the middle of that area. So it included some people who will never be sewered. It included some people that are truly Phase 8. It wasn't the way I expected the database to be. So that's who got the letter. I will expand on that by saying, since this is the way the records are, I would be happy when I get back from vacation to purchase an access program, and with everybody's input on the form. I haven't used Access in 15 years, but I think it would be the best database for something like this. We would all have to agree on the form so that we could start with simple demographic information, and then perhaps add on things like how old their sewers are. I mean, what I'm saying is, we're gonna be dealing with these people for 4 to 5 years. So I'd like to have a database that is manageable, that is helpful, and that we have, that is not, kind of like a shot in the dark.
What happened was, when we got that, and as I was working on it, I realized there were 864. And at that point, I did contact somebody, one of the board members, and said, how do you want to proceed? Because my impression was that we were getting the list of 600 and some homes that were potentially going to be sewered, all right? At that point, it was like, we got to get the letter out, and the person I spoke to said, let's get it out.
Just want to finish my statement. So at our April 30th meeting, if you guys would think that over, which is our next meeting, I'd love to have some discussion of that, because it would be a big endeavor, and there's no reason to go forward haphazard, but if we're in agreement to start our own database would be a good thing to do, then perhaps I'll put it on the agenda for that, and we can talk about it then.
Good idea.
All right.
I guess my initial look at, or thought about that is a great thing to do. The question is, maybe the Board of Health should be the one doing that, or maybe the health director maintaining the database. So I would just say, at that point, it would be calling an official database, as opposed to us doing it. I mean,
Hey, if there's a better way to get it
I
done,
understand.
then
Well, maybe that's the main
Yeah,
thing.
Yeah,
that's
go
that's
ahead.
what I'm here
Megan.
to say. We've actually already started a database because we've had to cross-reference septic permit numbers.
Okay.
So we were given the list of 628 properties, and we've started our own database. And as it grows or shrinks, we
So
will.
where did you
Megan,
get that
we've-
list of 628?
From CDM Smith, when they did their initial survey mailing, when they went out and did, we're coming out to your property to take the elevation of your sill,
Megan,
they gave us that list.
we were told the surveys went to the same group of
That's
people.
what we were told.
I'm not sure who did that mailing or where that mailing came from, but we received an actual mailing list of 628
Do you have that? Could you send that to us?
Sure.
That's what we've been asking for.
That's
since
what we asked
January.
for.
We have the addresses, not just the streets, but the
Yes.
addresses.
And the other thing is, if I remember correctly, Megan, you talked before about eventually, you're gonna scan all the septic records for
Yes.
those properties. So it just seems to me that having them do the database would be much more effective. Maybe for our June or April 30th meeting, if Megan's available, should come in and tell us where they are in that whole process. And
Sure, we can do that, and our list has an age of their existing septic system
that
and
would
things
be-
like that. So if you have information you would like on your, on this
Right.
database, we may be able to easily add it.
That would be absolutely wonderful,
Okay.
so we'll think it over and see you April 30th.
Anytime.
Thank
Is
you.
that Chris, on the, you got it for the agenda, right?
Yes.
On the April 30th meeting?
Yeah.
Okay, the last thing here is announcements. I think we've already talked about the CDM Smith meeting on April 19th at 7 PM at the Community Center. There will be no Wastewater Support Committee meeting on April 17th, and obviously no wastewater meeting on April 19th, since CDM Smith is. Anything else that we need to bring up? All right, do I have a motion to adjourn?
Motion to adjourn.
I'll second.
Send me
I
an
am-
email about